This is the Hub of Success, the Boston Business Podcast, with your hosts David Elmasian and Michael Delaney.
Welcome to the Hub of Success podcast. I am not your host, but I am here to introduce your hosts. My name is Steve Gordon, and I am here today to introduce you to this really outstanding new podcast, an exciting addition to the Boston business community. And I want to introduce you to your hosts on this journey. First, David Elmasian, and David, say hello to everybody.
Hi, Steve.
And also want to introduce you to his partner, Michael Delaney. Michael, welcome.
Hey, Steve.
Now, you guys are just crazy enough to get together and decide that you're going to create a podcast and base it all around the Boston business community, which I think is fantastic. I was just reading in Crunchbase that Boston is set to surpass New York City as the second largest hub of venture capital funding. And so clearly the business community is very dynamic, growing very rapidly, has been for a long time. And so I want to talk a little bit about where you're going to go with this and the types of conversations you're going to have. But before we do that, let's kind of give everybody some context so that they know where you're each coming from. So David, kind of give everybody who's listening just a little bit of background. What got you to this stage of your career?
Sure, Steve, thanks. I started out in the original IBM PC days in this business. First as somebody that learned, self-taught, and then later on as my career progressed, I always was attracted to technology. And so my first start was doing phone support for Microsoft Word. And so in those days, that was the ultimate, doing telephone support. It was before the internet, really. So that's how I really got started, and I kind of progressed from there. So I kind of moved up the ranks. I became a corporate IT manager for a number of years. And then when the first internet boom and bust occurred, I had the good fortune of being able to strike out on my own and start my own business. And that was in 1999, 2000. And so since that time, I've been in the IT support business in various forms and stages. And I'm at the point in my life and my career where I really wouldn't do anything else. I don't consider it work. It's really fun. And we have our moments, being in technology, there's always some drama, but I really wouldn't do anything else. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. And that's right. That's what we all want. We want a job where we can wake up every morning and say, we absolutely love it. And your business, Applied Synergy Group, I know has had just a tremendous amount of success with your clients. And we can, maybe talk a little bit more about what motivates you and what drives you in business as we go forward. All right. So I want to turn our attention just for a moment here, Michael, over to you. And I'd love for you to share how you got to this stage in your career in business. What drew you to technology, and how you got hooked up with this guy, David? How did you guys find each other? Well,
it's a long story, but I'll spare you all the details. My background is I'm a millennial that grew up with a computer in his room, and so I had a computer since the age of 4 or 5, and I wanted to play online games, when the internet was first starting up back in the dial-up days. So my love for gaming and PC games kind of forced me into technology. And from there, I was into computers throughout high school, graduated high school, and I went right into the Air Force and did a IT job for the Air Force, and they gave me a ton of actual real-world training, which was really cool because a lot of the stuff that I'd done was just self-taught, and then I actually learned the correct way to do it. And then I got out of the Air Force, and I worked in Boston for another company doing on-site tech support, and worked for them for a while, and then met Dave. He actually was looking for a technician. He hired me. I worked for him for about 6-7 years, and then I went back to school and went to Bentley University and got my degree in finance and economics, and was going to go that route. And then the whole financial market collapsed, 2009, 2010. And I said, well, okay, I'm really good at technology, so I guess I'll just do that. And then Dave and I decided to start Applied Synergy Group, and we've been doing that now for 5 years.
Well, it's funny all the twists and turns that you take. I think that's the natural evolution of business. It's almost like you're a heat-seeking missile, and you lose the signal, and you're constantly changing and going in different directions, trying to find the right path to the target. And I think those who are listening to this can probably really relate to that, because we all go through it in business. So, gentlemen, I'd love for you to share a little bit about why you want to start this. I mean, we talked about the dynamic nature of the business community in Boston, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your motivation for doing this podcast.
Sure. Well, let me jump in, Steve, if you don't mind. Our business had always been based upon relationships, always has been, always will be. Even though we're a technology company, like most companies and industries, it's always about the people. And, because of the nature of what we do, there's always going to be some sort of conflict. There's always going to be something that's going to come up. One of the things we realized, if we have a strong relationship with our clients, we know them, they know us, we'll ride out those bumps together rather than having it turn adversarial. So, the thought of having a podcast to listen to others, listen to their stories, is something that Mike honestly did much, much earlier than I did. But once I started listening to some podcasts, and I naturally gravitated to business-focused ones because that's, one of my interests, I was just hooked. And I love the stories. I loved hearing about people. And so, Mike and I kind of talked about different things, and we realized that maybe a podcast may be a great opportunity for us to meet other people, learn about them, share their stories for people that have an interest like we do, and build those relationships in a very intimate setting. Sitting in a booth, listening to somebody else's story, or even on the phone, it's very intimate and it's very revealing. And you share something with somebody, and that to me was just special, and is.
And I think that's a great reason to do one of these. And I think, having talked about this with you a little bit offline before we got on the interview, I know that you're looking to go and uncover some of the stories in the Boston business community that maybe aren't the ones that are front and center in the newspaper. Tell us a little bit about who you guys want to go and talk to, and who the listeners can expect to hear from as they tune in.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, Steve, we're very fortunate to be in the metropolitan Boston area, and there's not a place in the country that has a higher density of schools and universities. And what comes out of those schools and universities, a lot of innovation, a lot of technology, a lot of great ideas, a lot of really, really smart people, smarter than I am, that's for sure. I think one of the interesting aspects of having a podcast is we can sit down and we're going to interview and have interviewed people that maybe aren't household names right at this moment, but they have such great ideas and thoughts and innovations that being able to share them with others, I think, is huge, because that's what I'm interested in when I'm listening to a podcast. I want to know about the person. I want to get some insight. I want to get a competitive advantage by hearing people that are so smart and some of the wonderful things that they're doing. And we have such a wealth of that here in the Boston area that it's just an untapped resource as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think you're really onto something. And for those who are listening now to this very first episode, really, it's a trailer for the podcast to come. And if you're listening now, you will find in iTunes or wherever you're listening, there are already going to be other episodes there as you discover this one. And you'll see business leaders from around the community interviewed. And so I encourage you to go listen to those. And I also encourage you to reach out to David and reach out to Michael. And if you know a business owner that would be a really great fit, who has a great story to tell, reach out to them and make that introduction. And so, David, before we kind of wrap things up with this introductory episode, talk a little bit about, I guess, specifically what you might be looking for in a guest, and what the best way is for people who are listening to contact you.
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously our focus is on business and business leaders. It doesn't have to be about technology per se. We are in a technology business, but it's always about, I find what's most fascinating is hearing people's stories about how they started a business or how they grew a business. So, anybody that has that story that they'd like to share with us. And one of the elements that we really didn't touch on, Steve, in this is there's a little bit of mentoring involved in doing a podcast. You listen to others, they teach you, you teach others. There's a lot of people that have that mentality, and that's what we're really looking for. Somebody that's willing to share their insight, their stories with us, and the people that listen along with us, so they can, learn from that and apply it in their everyday life and in their business. That's really who we want to talk to. You don't have to be a big household name, but if you have a story to share that you feel others could benefit from, we'd love to talk with them and interview them.
And what's the best way for people to get in touch with each of you?
Well, for me, I think email is probably the easiest, or they go onto our website, appliedsynergygroup.com, and they can contact us that way. And we'd love to hear from them. And like I said, get them on a podcast.
Well, that's great. And I commend you guys for doing this. I think it's a wonderful thing. I've been fortunate. I've had the opportunity to listen to a little bit of what you're doing and who you're interviewing. And if this is the first episode you're listening to, there's some great stuff coming. And you want to go check that out right now. So David, Michael, thanks so much for introducing everyone to the Hub of Success podcast, and can't wait to see where you take it.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve.
The Hub of Success podcast is sponsored by Applied Synergy Group. Discover how to get unlimited technology support for one low monthly fee at appliedsynergygroup.com.